Today I'm here to announce that our office will be filing charges against Nick Reiner, who is accused of killing his parents, actor-director Rob Reiner, and photographer-producer Michelle Singer.
Steven Spielberg and Rob Reiner sit at the peak of modern cinema. Two heavyweights moving in different lanes but chasing the same thing: powerful storytelling. Spielberg pulls audiences into intense, immersive universes, while Reiner made his name through sharp comedy and raw human emotion. Different styles, same respect. And that mutual admiration was genuine. Their paths crossed frequently at industry events where movie talk flowed naturally, and respect was never manufactured. That's why a sudden wave of alarming rumors about Rob hit Hollywood hard and briefly shook Spielberg to his core. Confusion spread fast, fear crept in, and the idea of losing a longtime friend landed like a punch to the chest. Just weeks earlier, Spielberg remembered standing beside Rob at a party, watching him glow with pride as he spoke about his son Nick getting his life back on track and finding stability again. That joy was genuine, written all over Rob's face. The two directors stood there trading ideas, discussing future projects, dreaming out loud like kids again. Then the internet flipped the switch. Exaggerated reports started racing online, and the emotional impact hit before anyone could slow it down. Even before the facts surfaced, the damage was already done. It became a harsh reminder of how fast misinformation can spiral out of control. Thankfully, the rumors turned out to be false, but the emotional toll didn't disappear overnight. For Spielberg, it felt like staring into a nightmare version of reality, one no filmmaker ever wants to imagine. Spielberg later addressed the scare in a rare emotional media moment.
What I feel after all of this is it's not about punishing. If somebody is struggling and has difficulties, you don't punish them for that. And I think a lot of these programs feel like the kid is being punished. And I don't think that's a great way to go. You're a parent and you think, here's my kid running out into the street, he's going to get hit by a truck. You want to keep him.
Rob isn't just a colleague, he's a friend, he said quietly, every word heavy with meaning. His voice carried years of shared history, making it clear how deep that bond ran. The incident rattled him, not just as a filmmaker, but as a human being. Spielberg reflected on meeting Rob back when they were young, hungry, and chasing impossible dreams. He recalled a man full of ambition, yet grounded, humble, and driven by heart. When Spielberg spoke about the films that shaped Reiner's legacy, the emotion was impossible to miss. His words weren't polished or rehearsed, they were raw, honest, and real, revealing exactly what made Rob Reiner different in an industry that rarely slows down. He made stories that had people laughing, tearing up, and actually thinking long after the screen went dark. Spielberg summed it up best when he said, "Filmmaking is not just art, it is connection." Every word landed heavy, and the respect in the room was impossible to miss. To Spielberg, Rob was never just the mind behind The Princess Bride, When Harry Met Sally, or Stand By Me. He was the guy who turned humor into meaning and friendship into something that felt real. As Spielberg's voice softened, the weight of legacy pressed down on him hard. Rob's films will live on forever, but watching a friend carry personal struggles left a deep mark. Spielberg publicly reached out to the Reiner family with a heartfelt message of support, meant to express compassion during a painful chapter, not spark headlines or noise. He called Rob a wonderful friend, an extraordinary collaborator, and a gifted storyteller, making it clear the bond ran deep.
Nick attended Conan O'Brien's Christmas party Saturday night with his parents, Michelle and Rob. Maybe Nick was not invited to Conan O'Brien's party. He was wearing a hoodie. Reports are that he was acting weird, apparently accosting celebrities outside. Nick reportedly stormed off in a huff after a tiff with Bill Hader of SNL and Barry at Conan's Christmas party, and that Rob had been telling people, friends, that they were scared for Nick and scared for his mental state, that it was deteriorating.
Then Spielberg shared a rare personal memory, one he almost never speaks about, and it peeled back a much heavier truth. Years earlier, at a relaxed Hollywood gathering, laughter filled the house and old movie stories were flying everywhere. But Spielberg noticed Rob standing off to the side alone, drink in hand, looking drained in a way that didn't match the vibe. Spielberg walked over and asked, "It's been a long time. You don't look too well. What's going on?" Rob paused, sighed, and quietly pulled him out onto the balcony, away from the noise. That's when Rob opened up and admitted that Nick was going through serious struggles. The fear in his voice was impossible to ignore. Spielberg later recalled how carefully Rob spoke, respectful, guarded, but clearly hurting. "I could hear the pain in every sentence," Spielberg said. Rob tried to smile, tried to play it cool, but the weight was obvious. Then Rob finally admitted, "Steven, you know Nick has been struggling with addiction for years." He explained they had tried structure, treatment, and support, but setbacks kept pulling him back in. His voice dropped, eyes locked on the dark sky, carrying a pain only a parent could truly understand. Spielberg remembered that night clearly, the moment Rob finally let the walls come down. Rob admitted he poured his heart into making Being Charlie, hoping the project could help his son find balance and bring the family closer. For a while it worked, Rob said, his voice tight. He stayed clean for some time, but now it feels like we're back in the storm again. Fear crept into every word. I'm terrified. Stephen, I wake up scared that one day I might lose him. Spielberg leaned in, choosing his words carefully. Rob, you've done everything a father could do, he said firmly. Nick is lucky to have you and Michelle standing with him. But Rob slowly shook his head, his voice cracking. Sometimes we listen too much to doctors and not enough to our son. I just want to save him, but the harder I try, the more helpless I feel. The two men sat there in silence, taking slow sips of wine, letting the truth hang heavy in the air. That conversation never left Spielberg's mind. Time moved on, years passed, but the emotion stayed raw. By October 2025, Spielberg and Rob crossed paths again at the Governor's Awards in Los Angeles, and everything from that night came rushing back. The room was packed with legends, polished speeches and memories of Hollywood's golden years. As Steven Spielberg stepped inside, his eyes locked on Rob Reiner across the room. Rob was smiling wide, laughing with old friends, alive in a way that stopped Spielberg cold. He walked straight over, and the two wrapped each other in a tight embrace, patting backs like brothers who had already survived storms together. Rob, you look great, Spielberg said, genuinely stunned. How have you been? Rob laughed, eyes glowing in a way Spielberg hadn't seen in years. Stephen, you won't believe this, he said, excitement spilling out. Nick's home. He's doing so much better, clean for months now, working small jobs, talking with us again like before. Warmth hit Spielberg's chest instantly. Those late-night confessions rushed back. The fear, the exhaustion, the helpless waiting. Spielberg squeezed Rob's shoulder and smiled. That's incredible. You and Michelle never gave up. After everything, hope is finally here. The relief felt real, not staged, not polite. They drifted off to the side, away from the crowd, talking movies, young actors, and ideas still buzzing in their heads. But Spielberg couldn't stop thinking about Rob's smile. It carried something rare, hard-earned optimism, after years of anxiety and quiet worry. Looking back, Spielberg later admitted, his voice dropped when he remembered that moment. Who could have imagined, he thought, that only months later, life would remind them how fragile hope really is. Spielberg said the shock hit him hard when the news surrounding Rob's family began circulating. All that hope just beginning to glow felt like it disappeared in an instant. Spielberg stared out a window for a long time, his thoughts drifting back to that night filled with laughter, lights, and optimism. I'm happy for you. Hold on to hope, he had said. Rob had nodded quietly, eyes shining. Only later did Spielberg realize how delicate that hope truly was. Life doesn't move in straight lines, and its turns arrive without warning. In the days after the emotional fallout and nonstop headlines, Spielberg found himself rewatching The Princess Bride, one of his personal favorites. He smiled through tears at the familiar line, "As you wish," whispering to himself. In his public message, Spielberg chose care over noise, gratitude over speculation. He emphasized that Rob's creativity, warmth, humor, and humanity could never be erased. Hollywood felt heavier in that moment, but the films stayed bright, alive, and deeply human. Spielberg later clarified that he and Reiner were never constant hangout friends. They didn't call every week or drop by unannounced, but inside the film industry, their bond was built on something just as strong: mutual respect, shared history, and a deep understanding only storytellers truly share. Both men believed deeply in storytelling as a human force, shaped by Jewish cultural roots and artistic homes that valued curiosity, emotion, and expression. Rob Reiner gravitated toward grounded, human-centered stories, films about friendship, love, fear, and inner conflict. Steven Spielberg, by contrast, leaned into scale and wonder, building worlds that felt massive yet deeply personal. Different lanes, same purpose. They crossed paths often at award shows, film seminars, and major industry events. Always exchanging respect. Reiner once said, Spielberg's ability to fuse emotion with imagery was something every director could learn from. Spielberg returned the praise by calling Reiner's work a rare window straight into everyday humanity. That kind of praise, spoken quietly and sincerely, is one of the highest forms of respect one filmmaker can give another. And that brings the focus back to Spielberg himself. What kind of director is he really? How does he use light, sound, and framing to create stories that don't just reach the eyes but burn themselves into memory? Stephen Allen Spielberg was born on December 18, 1946 in Cincinnati, Ohio, into a family of Eastern European Jewish descent. He was the eldest child and the only son, growing up alongside three younger sisters. His father, Arnold Spielberg, was a brilliant electrical engineer, working with early room-sized computers that shaped the modern tech world. His mother, Leah, was a passionate pianist who filled the house with music, warmth, and creativity. Those contrasts, logic and emotion, structure and imagination, would later shape one of the most powerful storytelling voices cinema has ever seen. Spielberg's childhood home felt loving, but never permanent. Boxes appeared again and again as his father's work forced constant moves. New streets, new schools, new faces. Nothing stayed familiar for long. Spielberg later admitted, "I remember every move. Each time I felt like I lost a piece of myself." That instability forced him to adapt fast in a world that never stopped shifting. But that loss forged something powerful. It taught him how to observe people, how to listen more than speak, and how to find his place quietly in unfamiliar rooms. Those instincts didn't come from comfort. They came from constant change. At just 6 years old, his parents took him to see The Greatest Show on Earth, directed by Cecil B. DeMille. When the lights dimmed and the circus exploded across the screen, young Stephen froze, eyes wide, barely breathing. Walking out, he grabbed his mother's hand and whispered, "I want to make things that scare people and make them feel joy like that." Leah smiled, brushed his hair, and said, "Then you must first learn how to tell stories, my dear Stevie." That moment never left him. When Stephen was 12, his father handed him an 8mm camera and everything changed. He filmed nonstop, family trips, backyard scenes, toy train crashes staged with precision. He even cast himself in moments of danger, recreating fears that once haunted him. "You play the victims, I'll save everyone," he told his sisters. Those grainy films became his way of shaping chaos and demanding control. Outside the house, life wasn't gentle. After moving to Phoenix, Arizona, Spielberg found himself one of the only Jewish kids around. He later spoke openly about bullying, insults, and isolation. "I always wondered why I was different," he admitted, choosing observation over confrontation. That pain sharpened his empathy. It gave him a deep understanding of loneliness, fear, and hope, emotions that would later pulse through every frame of his films. By 13, Steven Spielberg was already obsessed with turning imagination into motion. He made a 40-minute war film titled Escape to Nowhere and won a youth film competition. At 16, he poured every dollar he had into Firelight, a science fiction film running over 2 hours. It screened for only a few dozen people in a small local theater, but to Steven, it felt enormous. As the lights came up, he sat there certain of one thing. One day, people would line up to watch his films. That belief never left him. Years later, Spielberg admitted one of the most painful moments of his teenage life came at that same age during a family camping trip. While filming casually near a campfire, he unknowingly captured something that would haunt him for years. On the footage was his mother Leah holding hands with Bernie Adler, his father's closest friend. The realization hit like a shockwave. Steven shut the camera off immediately and buried the truth deep inside. He carried that secret alone for nearly 3 years. When his parents separated in 1965, his father Arnold quietly took all the blame to protect Leah and shield the family from judgment. Steven moved to California with his father but never understood the full story. Back then, confused, angry, and hurting, he turned on Arnold and once said coldly, "Dad destroyed this family." Arnold didn't argue or defend himself. He simply nodded and stayed silent. That silence cut deep. The pain lingered for more than 15 years. Spielberg grew emotionally distant from his father, blaming him for every fracture in the family. That unresolved tension shaped his deep understanding of love, resentment, guilt, and forgiveness, emotions that would later echo powerfully through his films. By the late 1960s, Spielberg's talent was impossible to ignore. In 1968, his short film Amblin screened at a festival and stunned executives at Universal Studios. Spielberg knew immediately, this wasn't a hobby. This was his life. He dropped out of college, became an unpaid intern at Universal, and secretly worked out of empty offices at night. In 1969, at just 22, he signed a long-term directing contract, becoming the youngest director in Hollywood history to land such a deal. He started in television directing episodes of Night Gallery and Columbo, but it was the 1971 TV movie Duel that changed everything. The story of a man stalked by a mysterious truck gripped audiences and critics alike. That success led to his first feature film, The Sugarland Express. But the real explosion came in 1975 with Jaws. The film became a cultural phenomenon, earning over $470 million worldwide and creating the modern summer blockbuster. Spielberg later joked, "The shoot was brutal. There were moments I thought the shark would get me before the film was finished. But Jaws turned him into a superstar and reshaped Hollywood forever. What followed proved he was more than spectacle. Films like Close Encounters of the Third Kind and E.T. the Extraterrestrial revealed his deep compassion and emotional core. He later took on historical dramas like Schindler's List and Saving Private Ryan, confronting moral conflict and human suffering head-on. In 1994, Spielberg co-founded DreamWorks, producing major hits across genres. Even decades later, his creative fire never cooled. Films like Lincoln and Bridge of Spies proved his voice still carried weight. Despite global fame, Spielberg guarded his personal life carefully. He married actress Amy Irving in 1985, and they welcomed a son later that year. The marriage ended in 1989, but both stayed respectful and focused on what mattered most. Not long after, Spielberg found lasting love with Kate Capshaw, whom he directed in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. During auditions, Spielberg later admitted he was instantly struck by her screen test. Kate once joked she never imagined a role filled with chaos would lead her to the man of her life. During filming in Sri Lanka and the United States, shared meals, long conversations, and quiet moments slowly brought them closer. At the time, Spielberg was still committed elsewhere, so the connection remained professional and respectful, but the foundation was already there, built on trust, creativity, and timing that couldn't be forced. It wasn't until 1989, after his divorce, that Steven Spielberg and Kate Capshaw officially began dating and later moved in together. Kate later explained, "We grew close on set, but we knew we had to wait for the right moment for anything real to begin." That patience shaped everything that followed. Before their wedding, Kate chose to convert to Judaism, and in 1991 they married in both civil and Orthodox Jewish ceremonies. Spielberg later shared that Kate helped him reconnect deeply with his Jewish identity and heritage, grounding him in something larger than Hollywood. Their relationship grew into a large blended family. Kate brought her daughter Jessica from a previous marriage, while Spielberg had a son Max from his marriage to Amy Irving. Together, they welcomed additional biological and adopted children, creating one of Hollywood's most well-known extended families. Their marriage has now lasted more than 3 decades, a rare achievement in the entertainment world. Kate gradually stepped away from acting to focus on family life and painting, while Spielberg continued directing at the highest level. The family includes 7 children, all grown, all choosing their own paths. Some entered film and entertainment, others went in completely different directions. In 2020, one of Spielberg's daughters publicly spoke about her career choices, emphasizing they were made independently and with full family support. Spielberg has always been clear. Parenting is about care, guidance, and respect, not control. That philosophy extended beyond his own home. Spielberg became a mentor figure to young actors early in their careers, most famously Drew Barrymore during E.T. the Extraterrestrial. "She needed stability," Spielberg once said. Being there wasn't just responsibility, it mattered. Even now, approaching 80, Spielberg remains deeply active in filmmaking. He continues developing new projects and revisiting familiar worlds with the same curiosity he had as a teenager. "I've never felt tired of storytelling," he said quietly. "Every film is a new chance to say something honest." In recent years, he has focused more on health and balance, making changes to keep his mind and body sharp for the demands of modern filmmaking. Close collaborators say his creativity is still fueled by discipline and purpose, not pressure. After reflecting on longtime friendships and the fragility of life, including his bond with Rob Reiner, Spielberg reminded audiences of something simple and powerful. Awards fade, fame fades, but people are the story. That belief has defined his entire career. If this story moved you, share your thoughts in the comments below. Let us know which Spielberg or Reiner film shaped you the most. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more deep dives into Hollywood legends and the stories behind them.